Hello and welcome to another Stellaris Explained video where we are going to go over planets and how to develop them in a reasonable way. The first thing that you want to figure out when you're going to colonize a planet is where you want to put your colony ship. It will build into a ship shelter once the colony is ready. And although the reassembled ship shelter doesn't give adjacency bonuses, once you upgrade to a planetary administration, you can see there, minerals, food, and energy get a +1 adjacency bonus to the planetary administration. So when you're building something like that, you want to find a tile that not only produces energy, because you don't want to squash a resource if you don't have to, but also is adjacent to 4 tiles of those 3, minerals, food, and energy. So if I built a planetary administration here, I would get a adjacency bonus with the food here, the energy here, and the minerals here. And to reap that adjacency bonus, you not only have to work the tile, but you also have to have an upgrade there. So once I put that farm there, I get the hydroponics farm +3. And then I should also have an adjacency bonus, but I'm not working the planetary administration. So there it is, +1 adjacency from the administration. Both of the things have to be worked. They both have to have upgrades on the tiles. But that is the ideal way to do this. And in the early game, you are going to be doing this pretty much exclusively. You're going to be finding a spot that has the most bonuses and building an area around it. Once you have the initial 4 buildings, or 3 possibly, sometimes you get stuck in an edge with your planetary administration. It happens. It's not very often, but it does happen. You're going to start thinking about the ideal pops for these areas. And when you're first starting, you're just going to have your population, unless you take the Empire trait. I think there's one where you start with another population on your home planet. But generally, you start with your own population, and sometimes you have the ability to build robots. Now, robots, the very first tier, not these synthetics, will only get a bonus to producing minerals. They're going to have a malus to producing energy, research, and unity. Now, as you upgrade them to droids through tech, you are then going to have less of a malus, but it will still be a malus towards energy, research, and unity. So they're still ideal simply for the mineral patches. You can see right now, synthetics getting 20%. If you decide to go full synthetic with your robot pops, you are then going to get no bonus for food, but you will get a bonus for research, minerals, and energy. And then Unity has no bonus as well. So synthetics are actually ideal for a lot of the tiles once you get to that point, but until you have synthetics, you pretty much only want to put robots on minerals if you can afford the energy cost, because instead of consuming food, they will consume, I believe it's 1 energy. Yeah, maintenance, 1 energy. So if you can float it with the energy cost, then it is entirely worth it to get some more mineral production. Now for the rest of the planet, you're probably going to, at least in the beginning, be looking at the tile resources and trying to use them as best as possible. You're going to, try to make the most out of the planet. Of course, if you end up with some planets where you are heavily imbalanced in resources and or science, you're obviously going to have to go against the tile resources that are there and possibly, have to build food on minerals or energy on minerals or whatever. But for the most part, you want to at least try to adhere to what the tile resources are naturally. That way you're not squashing the extra 1 to 3. Or even, is this one 3? Yeah. No, that one's a 1. But you're not squashing the extra output from those tile resources that are naturally occurring. Once your empire has grown to a certain point in the game, you're not really going to be looking at tile resources anymore individually. It's ideal to work your planets that way. Looking at your tile and saying this is going to be a mineral one, this is going to be a science one. That is the ideal way. But realistically, your empire is going to be expanding so quickly that it won't really matter. What you're going to be doing is colonizing a planet and then looking at this little area right here. And as you can see, food is the largest produced resource on this planet. So what I would end up doing, say if I have, 10 other planets, so I'd colonize this, I'd see, oh, there's 7 food on here, that's the biggest resource. So long as I'm not lacking in something else, what I'll end up doing is I will simply build a planetary administration somewhere. Let's see, is one of these better? It is, but I'd still rather have it in the center because of the bonuses. Build a planetary administration, and then I would just throw farms everywhere. You're going to be squashing the resources. It's a little dumb, it's definitely wasteful, but I think it's a better way to go. Now, as you're building, there is a governor that you can assign to planets, obviously. These governors sometimes come with traits that are very useful, like this one has a build speed plus 10%, I think. No, maybe that's actually standard. Let's see. No, it is standard. There is, I don't see one here, but there is the environmental engineer, which makes clearing tiles cheaper and quicker. There is another one. It looks like a little house, architectural interest. It reduces building cost and building speed by 10% and increases building speed by 10%. And then there's an iron fist one. So if you are using slaves, which I should also go over, they will increase the slave output of your enslaved people. There is a army build speed person, as well as garrison health. And then there is a ship build speed with spaceport module costs. So when you're building your spaceports, you can get a little bit of a discount on those. And then there's obviously the agrarian upbringing that's going to make more food. It's going to cost less to build farms. And I think that is all of them. So let's talk about slavery. Slavery is something that you decide per species in the set rights dialog box. There is chattel slavery, there's domestic servitude, battle thralls, and livestock. These all have specific modifier enhancements. Obviously, these get food and minerals. Domestic servitude doesn't really benefit any resource output, but it does add happiness to other pops on the planet. Battle thralls make more energy and more research, and they apparently make excellent soldiers, so probably recruits from these battle thralls are better. And then livestock creates food. You're basically using your slaves to eat. So, as a caste system, what is going to happen is, or as chattel slaves, whatever, they are going to automatically turn into slaves or not slaves when they are on the proper tiles. So if you move it off, he's now a scientist. He doesn't do the slave thing. You put him back onto food, he is going to be a slave. And slavery does a couple things. Mostly it reduces happiness, as there are ways to mitigate it, with edicts and governors and whatnot. But just be aware that you are going to have unhappy pops as a result. It's not really terrible because you move them, they do not retain their unhappiness. And yeah, that's pretty much it for slaves. You can use different types of slaves for different things, and they're not terrible anymore. They're not ideal, I don't think. I don't know. They can be alright. I don't really use them, though. And probably the final thing that we should really talk about is happiness. Now, happiness is a sliding scale, and it depends on a large amount of factors, depending on what faction they're in, how they're being treated, as in being enslaved and whatnot. But happiness does basically one of two things. It will either be, well, it does three things, I suppose. It's either neutral, where you get no bonuses or malices. If it's 61 or greater, you're going to get a positive buff to producing food, energy, minerals, and research. And then if they are unhappy, they will produce food just fine, but energy, minerals, and research will get a negative malice. Now that we have the basics of the planets squared away, we can talk about edicts. And this is why I think that building a singular planet with a singular resource in mind is so powerful. Because if you, say, build an energy world, you can use capacity overload here to increase your energy production by 15% on the entire planet, which is massive. And you can do the same for minerals, and you can do the same for food. In fact, food is 25%, which is insane. 10 years of an extra quarter of your food out of that planet is great. There are other edicts here. We have Land of Opportunity, which basically attracts more people from the rest of your empire to this planet. It's good for quickly populating a planet if you want to. And then you have infrastructure projects, which I recommend when you first colonize so that you can build things very quickly. There's also re-education campaigns and propaganda broadcasts. They're basically ways to increase happiness. Propaganda broadcasts being direct, just an added happiness modifier. And then the re-education campaigns will change the, ethics? Yeah, ethics of the pops on that planet towards your governing ethics so that they're not as unhappy. Now, if your empire has a fanatical ethos, you also will get special campaigns or special edicts that you can use. So if you're a fanatic militarist, you can use the arms race edict on a planet, and that will give you 33% army build speed, minus 25% spaceport module costs, and plus 33% ship build speed. If you're a fanatic egalitarian, you can use grassroots administration, which gives you plus 20% energy credits, a little bit better than the capacity overload here. If you are a fanatic xenophobe, you can use purity laws, which will increase the unity output of a planet by 20%. Legal aliens is a fanatic xenophile edict, and it will increase the alien migration attraction for your planet. So again, if you're trying to populate a planet, it's very good. Peace festivals comes from being a fanatic pacifist, and that gives you plus 30% food instead of just 25. There is social engineering from fanatic authoritarians, and that is plus 30% governing ethics attraction, so a little bit better at the re-education of your people. There's the spirit of science, which comes from fanatic materialists. This one is my favorite. It gives you plus 20% to all research on that planet. It is amazing. And then there's spiritual unity from being a fanatic spiritualist, which gives you plus 10% unity and plus 10% governing ethics attraction. Now, once you have unlocked a couple ascension perks, there's one called Consecrated Worlds Ascension perk, and that also opens up an edict called Consecrate Planet, and that will essentially give you 10% happiness, 10% population speed growth, and 15% unity, which is also pretty great, but more than likely I wouldn't recommend taking it simply because there are better ascension perks. Though I should mention that the Consecrate Planet edict lasts 100 years, but it does cost 300 influence, so it's expensive but lasts almost indefinitely. And I think the last thing that I want to talk about in this video is going to be terraforming. Terraforming is pretty simple. You research the tech, you decide where you want to terraform. If it is already colonized, you need to research further tech. But if it's uncolonized, you can simply terraform it, and you will say what you want it to be. I don't actually even know. What is this, continental? I want this to be a continental world. I say it's going to be continental. It'll take a certain amount of time. It takes, minerals and whatnot. But one thing to note is that all of the tile blockers on the planet will be cleared once you terraform it. So if you are going to terraform something, terraform it before you colonize. It makes things simpler. You don't have to spend all the extra minerals and energy clearing all the tile blockers. So yeah, that's it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed. I'm sure that I forgot something somewhere, so please feel free to let me know in the comments. And I will see you next time.